I'm Maria Titizian.
And I'm Rubina Margosian, and this is the Week in Review.
Every week we bring you the stories shaping Armenia and the region.
From politics and policy to social issues and conflict, we break down the news and what it means for you.
This week in the news, Armenia's parliament approves bill to pursue EU membership. In a telephone call, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio tells Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan that any escalation in the South Caucasus is unacceptable. And the Starlink satellite internet service launches in Armenia. These stories and more in our weekly roundup of the news.
This week, the Armenian parliament passed a bill officially greenlighting Armenia's bid for European Union membership. The bill states that with the aim of developing democratic institutions, improving societal well-being, and strengthening security, resilience, and the rule of law, Armenia is launching the process for EU accession. Deputy Foreign Minister Bayır Hovhannisyan emphasized that while the bill is not an application for EU membership, it reflects the aspirations of the Armenian people to elevate their partnership with the EU. The process was initiated by Eurovote, an alliance of Armenia's pro-European extra-parliamentary forces. They gathered more than 50,000 signatures, which triggered the parliamentary discussion. Though initially there was talk of holding a referendum, the ruling party has since clarified that this is simply a political statement of Armenia's intent to move closer to the EU. While EU accession is a long and complex process, and it remains uncertain if or when it will become a reality for Armenia, Moscow was quick to once again warn Armenia about the potential consequences of such a move. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Uverchuk made it clear that if Armenia pursues EU membership, Moscow will have to reconsider its entire economic relationship with Yerevan. He suggested this shift would negatively affect the standard of living in Armenia. Uverchuk also noted that both the EU and the EAU have similar agendas, meaning Armenia cannot balance both relationships indefinitely.
Russia's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova also commented on Armenia's EU accession bill, reiterating the Russian stance that membership in the EU and the EAU, this is the Eurasian Economic Union, are not mutually compatible. Essentially, they are overlapping opportunities and not complementary ones. Zakharova also pointed out that the cooperation within the Trilateral Working Group on unblocking regional communications in the South Caucasus has stalled, citing the destructive influence of Western countries and the questionable stance of Armenian authorities. According to Zakharova, the swift resumption of full cooperation within the group would not only aid in restoring the transport and logistics system of the South Caucasus, allowing it to integrate into broader cargo transportation networks from Europe to Asia and vice versa, but would promote socioeconomic development for Armenia and the entire region. Zakharova said that if Armenia's position regarding the working group has changed, it would be appropriate for them to announce this at the proper level. And as a reminder, in January 2021, following the 2020 Artsakh war, a trilateral working group was established, chaired by the deputy prime ministers of Armenia-Azerbaijan and Russia, to discuss the unblocking of regional communications. The group's work came to a halt in the summer of 2023, although neither of the parties has made an official announcement about the termination of the group. Armenia's parliament speaker Alen Simonian told reporters this week that Armenia does not plan to resume the group's work.
Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan discussed the Armenia-EU strategic partnership with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio this week. According to Pashinyan's press office, the Prime Minister informed Rubio about the negotiation process that led to the agreement on the draft peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The Prime Minister emphasized that the draft is now awaiting signature. Both leaders agreed to continue high-level communications between Armenia and the U.S. The U.S. State Department stated that Rubio and Pashinyan discussed shared interests as strategic partners. The secretary welcomed the peace agreement and highlighted the importance of lasting peace to break the cycle of regional conflict and bring security and prosperity to the South Caucasus. Both agreed that any form of escalation in the region is unacceptable. Yerevan and Washington signed the Armenia-U.S. Strategic Partnership Charter earlier this year on January 14.
Pashinyan announced in parliament this week that Armenia has proposed to Azerbaijan, both publicly and through diplomatic channels, to begin negotiations on the time and place for signing of the peace treaty. He also addressed Azerbaijan's demand for the dissolution of the Minsk group, stating that Yerevan wants to be certain that, just as Armenia has made a political decision not to continue the Karabakh movement, Azerbaijan likewise has not made a political decision to launch a Western Azerbaijan movement. Meanwhile, Armenia's Deputy Foreign Minister Robert Abisogomonian, speaking at a special session of the OSCE Permanent Council convened at Armenia's request, stated that if Azerbaijan wants to put an end to the existence of the OSCE Minsk Group, the most logical and legitimate way is to sign the peace agreement. He emphasized that once the treaty is signed, the Minsk Group would no longer be needed, as the agreement would officially and institutionally mark the end of the conflict. As for Azerbaijan's demand to amend Armenia's constitution, Armenia has stated that while the current constitution does not contain territorial claims against Azerbaijan, the Constitutional Council will draft a text that does not hinder the establishment of peace in the region or the finalization of a peace agreement.
Meanwhile, Armenian Foreign Minister Arad Mirzoyan stated this week that since both Armenia and Azerbaijan announced the completion of negotiations on the draft agreement, this was 2 weeks ago, Baku has repeatedly insisted that Armenia must amend its constitution, as we said several times in this podcast already.
And many times before that.
This is to, according to Azerbaijan, remove territorial claims against Azerbaijan and formally agree to the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group before the treaty can be signed. Well, we repeat this because the Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry responded. Spokesperson Ayhan Hajizadeh dismissed Mirzoyan's remarks as entirely unfounded, stating that Armenia is well aware that these demands have been a central part of negotiations for the past 2.5 years. He further claimed that Azerbaijan raised the issue of Armenia's constitutional amendments and the dissolution of the Minsk Group as early as May 2023 during the meeting in Washington. And this is a meeting between Mirzoyan, his Azerbaijani counterpart, and the former U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. Hajizadeh argued that considering this, Armenia's claims that these conditions were introduced only recently are misleading and aimed at confusing the international community, which, according to him, will not yield any results.
And this week, again, in the vein of Ararat Mirzoyan, the foreign minister had phone calls with his Russian and Hungarian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov and Peter Siarto. In his conversation with Lavrov, Mirzoyan discussed key issues on, the Armenia-Russia bilateral agenda, emphasizing the importance of maintaining political dialogue at various levels. Meanwhile, his discussion with Siarto focused on strengthening Armenia-EU ties, broader bilateral cooperation, and the prospect of signing an Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement. Hungary is one of Azerbaijan's key allies within the EU.
And throughout the week, Armenian media outlets have been reporting on shootings near the Armenia-Azerbaijan border. In response, Armenia's defense ministry clarified that occasional gunfire has been heard along the border, but these shots do not target Armenian territory. In such cases, the Ministry of Defense would otherwise issue reports on ceasefire violations. And yesterday, Defense Minister Suren Babikan addressed the issue in Parliament as well, stating that the ministry is closely monitoring the situation and emphasizing that Yerevan is working towards resolving the matter through diplomatic means. Well, residents of border villages in Armenia's Syunik province, including Khanazakh and Khoznavar, reported that shootings are usually heard between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. While most of the shots are heard from a distance, some villagers said Azerbaijani soldiers also targeted their villages and the fields they work on.
In other news, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi visited Armenia this week. During a joint press conference, Ararat Mirzoyan, the foreign minister, emphasized that the steady development of relations with Iran remains a priority in Yerevan's regional policy. Mirzoyan highlighted the growing economic cooperation between the two countries, noting that bilateral trade has seen tangible success in recent years, and in fact, in 2024, trade volume surpassed the levels recorded at least over the past 5 years. Discussions are ongoing to further boost trade turnover to $3 billion, with additional opportunities created by the free trade agreement between the Eurasian Economic Union and Iran, which is set to come into effect beginning of May of this year. He also underscored Iran's involvement in Armenia's key infrastructure projects, which are both economically and strategically significant. One example is the construction of a 32-kilometer section of the Kacharan-Agarag road entrusted to an Iranian company, which Mirzoyan called a crucial component of Armenia's Crossroads of Peace initiative. He noted that Iran was among the first countries to endorse the project and is actively participating in its implementation. In his speech, the Iranian foreign minister welcomed the agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan on the text of a potential peace treaty. He encouraged the two countries to move forward with the agreement as soon as possible, emphasizing that its swift signing could play a crucial role in strengthening peace and stability in the region, while also boosting economic development. Araghchi reiterated Iran's firm stance on supporting the independence and territorial integrity of regional states, opposing any attempts to alter internationally recognized borders or shift the region's geopolitical landscape. This is something that Iran has been saying since the end of the war. He stressed that regional issues should be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy without the use of force. While acknowledging the ongoing risk of rising tensions in the region, he expressed hope that they could be minimized, allowing for lasting peace and stability, benefiting all parties involved.
And in local news, residents of Gyumri and Parakar are set to vote for their new city councils this Sunday. But in Gyumri, Armenia's second largest city, the lead up to the elections has been overshadowed by allegations of vote buying and bribery. Law enforcement carried out searches at the offices of the Our City and Mother Armenia alliances as part of an ongoing investigation. Several individuals from both alliances were detained. The Anti-Corruption Committee has since confirmed that criminal cases have been launched on charges related to vote buying and other election offenses. Last week, election watchdog Independent Observer filed a complaint with Armenia's Prosecutor General accusing Martin Grigoryan, this is a candidate from the Our City Alliance, of offering free services to voters in violation of election laws. The group claimed Grigoryan organized free road renovations while campaigning, which under Armenia's criminal code is considered a form of bribery if tied to election campaigning.
Well, in Gyumri, just for our listeners, if anybody's interested, and we should be, because it is the second largest city, as you said, Rup, 9 political parties and alliances are competing. The ruling Civil Contract Party has nominated acting mayor Sarik Minasyan, who was elected during primaries in December. Mardun Grigoryan, which you just mentioned, a former member of both the Prosperous Armenia and Republican parties, is leading the list for the Our City Alliance. He is currently a member of the opposition I Have Honor parliamentary faction. The Mother Armenia Alliance, which has 12 members in the Yerevan municipality, is represented in Gyumri by businessman Garen Simonian. The alliance was founded, only in 2023 by Antranik Tevanyan, a member of the opposition Armenia Alliance, who gave up his parliamentary mandate, if people remember, to run in the September 2023 Yerevan municipal elections. And the very well-known and infamous, I guess there's no other way of describing him,
Infamous is correct.
pretty good, Mayor Vartan Rugasyan, who served as mayor of Gyumri for 12 years, from 2000 to 2012, is also running in this election with the Communist Party. Pro-European forces in Gyumri have united under the Euro Alliance, with Levon Barsegyan, who is the president of the Journalists Aspares Club, as their representative. Mane Tandilyan's Country to Live party is also in the race, with Garen Malkhasyan, the party faction head in the current Gyumri City Council, at the top of their list. And the remaining 3 parties in the elections are Armenia's Workers' Socialist Party, the Democratic Alternative Party, and the My Powerful Community Party. A lot of parties we have.
Yes.
Half of
And somehow the Communist Party is in the mix as well.
If it wasn't, Anyway, 4 political forces are competing in the upcoming Parakar municipal elections. Parakar is a town just outside of Yerevan, where we go furniture shopping most of the time. The ruling Civil Contract Party is represented by Ludwig Gulnazarian, former head of the Parakar community, who was elected acting mayor during the primary elections in January. Gulnazarian had resigned in November 2024 after he was involved in a criminal investigation. I yearn for the day where vote spying, criminal investigation, corruption are no longer, tied up with elections. But, there you have
Well,
it.
elections bring up these
Bring these things up. David Minasyan, former head of the Parakar community, is leading the pre-election list of the National Progress Party. Minasyan resigned in May 2024. Back in 2021, his alliance and the Civil Contract Party struck an agreement where Minasyan would lead the community for 2.5 years before stepping down for Gulnazarian to take over. And the Stability Party, led by Gor Saribekyan, is also in the running. He served as deputy mayor under Minasyan. And lastly, the Unity Party alliance list is headed by Volodya Grigoryan, a member of the Country to Live party and a current member of the Parakar Community Council.
Maybe one day I'll try to make a sentence with all the party names, political party names that we have in Armenia.
It could be a children's book, maybe.
No.
Country to Live, Prosperous Armenia.
Well, yesterday Armenia's parliament voted to strip former Civil Contract Party parliament member Hovik Aghazarian and former Yerevan mayor Daron Markaryan, who is now a parliament member from the I Have Honor Alliance. This one will be difficult to include in that sentence that I'm thinking of. They both men were stripped of their immunity, allowing criminal proceedings against them. Aghazarian is accused of accepting and offering bribes, while Markaryan is under investigation for the illegal appropriation of property. Both politicians denied the allegations.
Armenia's investigative committee this is a strange story, I must admit. So they're looking into the illegal cutting of around 36 healthy trees in Yerevan's botanical garden. The issue was raised last week by an activist. The garden's director claims she knows nothing about it, while the municipality has pointed out that the garden falls under the supervision or jurisdiction of the National Academy of Sciences. However, the Academy has not issued a statement regarding the incident. I don't know if this is a tempest in a teapot or what it is, but 36 trees were cut down and nobody knows who did it, why they did it, who ordered it.
They can't follow the order, or this is kind of one of those mysteries where it never needs to be a mystery.
It shouldn't be, yes.
And for the sake of Artsakh Union, which brings together Artsakh NGOs, activists, and former political figures, has announced a rally on March 29 at 3 p.m. in Yerevan's Freedom Square to support the rights of the people of Artsakh. The rally will focus on 4 key issues: ensuring the collective right of return to Artsakh, addressing the urgent social needs of displaced Artsakh Armenians, including dignified housing and employment support programs, securing the return of Armenian prisoners from Baku, and protecting Artsakh's cultural heritage and both private and public properties. And it appears, when we look, that the event is not connected to any of the main opposition forces in Armenia.
Well, and finally, I guess good news, Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service is now available in Armenia. High-tech Minister Mkhitar Hayrapetyan called it a major leap in expanding reliable high-speed internet access across the country, including in rural and hard-to-reach areas. He also highlighted that this milestone was achieved through, collaboration between Starlink, his ministry, and other key national authorities. He did not mention those, with no intermediaries involved. According to Hayrapetyan, Starlink's launch marks a transformative moment for Armenia's digital infrastructure and underscores the government's continued mission to bridge the digital divide by enabling access to the best global services. And as always, we will briefly talk about some of the articles that we published this week. Today we published we're March, right? Yeah, the March security report called Aliyev's Performative Gamble, the Draft Agreement on Peace by Dr. Nerses Kopalyan. And he looks, as we were all surprised by the unilateral declaration of a draft peace agreement, he says this was a calculated gamble on the part of Aliyev to capture DC's attention, the U.S. attention, rather than a genuine step toward peace. And this strategy has backfired, exposing Aliyev's bad faith engagement with Washington preferring the narrative of its strategic partner Armenia. It's an interesting look at the motivation behind the unilateral announcement of a potential peace treaty and why immediately after more preconditions were brought into the fold and basically that Aliyev is not interested in peace. He has not been able to make inroads with the Trump administration. And this was a way of garnering attention to show that he's a partner for peace. But in reality, this all backfired because now like over 30 countries and major power centers welcomed the initiative, and now they're waiting for its signature. And as our leadership has been talking about it constantly, Baku is, to put it mildly, dragging its feet on it. So it's definitely something worth reading.
And because the whole the surprise agreement, which we were not expecting this, it's not like it's been early, but we were not expecting out of nowhere, was kind of surprise, and everyone is looking for explanations as to why would Baku announce that they've agreed on a text which they don't have any intention of signing.
And this is a good explainer for that.
Well, we did launch the fourth issue of Salt. Salt is our lifestyle magazine. It did take up a lot of the week.
Yes.
What we published this week was mainly Salt. Well, we, as usual, we have a photo story in the issue. This time it's about the life of a 70-year-old mailman who still uses his bike to deliver mail. Is in Artashat, the home of our podcast producer, our producer sitting right here. We do have another story. It's called Cooking Through Crisis, Rebuilding Lives Through Zhingalovhats. It looks at two families from Artsakh who opened small restaurants, bistros in Yerevan, and how their connection to Artsakh and their memories and the concept of home is in this is in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And
through Zhingalovhats
and cooking.
Yeah.
And we did look at a couple of vintage stores in Armenia, and not to be confused with second-hand stores, because vintage stores are currently available in Armenia that offer curated collections of and stylized collections of clothes. That's called Resurgence of Vintage Culture, Yerevan edition. And unmuting the conversation, Teresa Panchoyan's Revolution in Sex Education. She's one of the more interesting social media personalities in Armenia that a lot of women are following and learning from, because
not only women
and men absolutely learning from, because she speaks about sex education in Armenia, and not without her own challenges.
Yeah, she's had her account reported, shut down, and she's come back again. It's called Girl Unmuted for those who are interested. It's in Armenian. And it was a very interesting story. I've been following her for a long time, and she's doing important work in the absence of proper sex education in the country. And people sometimes don't want to hear about this, but it's so important. And I remember someone once saying she's doing God's work. I don't know if it's God's work or not, but something people should definitely check out.
Similar pages are available in other languages, so many of them, but it's also very important to learn to speak about these subjects in your own language, and to hear about these subjects being discussed in your own language.
Yeah.
And also, this is not part of Salt, but our itinerary is back. I always have a hard time pronouncing the name.
Oh, you chose the name, I think.
I did. Well, Vigen Galesyan, who actually writes the collection, puts together the collection of events, art events, lectures, and festivals, and movie screenings in Armenia, is back. This time we're covering from March 27 until April 10. And in a personal message, he said, there's so much going on. Expect another one on April 1.
Yeah, there you go. It is. It's the city is always, full of events. And this is a really good, because like you said, it's curated. He gives his opinion on
it doesn't always choose the good things. It's not a selection of everything that he thinks is good. It's a selection of everything he thinks is interesting, within the context of what we've had so far, who's doing the same thing, who's doing something new, not well enough, and who's doing something new or creative excellently. So it's an interesting
and
selection.
It's on our front page. You can check it out. And that's the kind of week we've had here in Armenia. Thank you for listening. Have a safe and peaceful weekend, and we will be back again next week.